So that, in essence, is the proposal that we have, and I'm very happy to take any questions you might have.
Is this a recognition that the restructuring in 2010 didn't work? It was hurried and it will fall through.
I think there have been reservations about what happened in 2010. I think the only positive change which came out of 2010 was the establishment of the Department of Economic Development. The other changes, I think it's fair to say, probably have had less material impact on the performance of government. But the changes we're bringing now are more a reflection of the times that we live in, that the financial pressures that we're under, the external pressures we're under, have increased considerably since 2010 and will continue to do so. And so this is simply a review of the process that we went through in 2010 and an updating of the outcomes which we believe are more appropriate for, not just for
Is there any kind of ballpark figure as to what this will save?
Not at this stage, no. It's too early to be specific about financial savings and even headcount savings, but we are confident they will be substantial with the passage of time, that we will make savings on all these fronts. There's a great deal of detail still to be worked through on the specifics of the implementation of these changes, and I hope that by the time we get to Tynwald in January, we may well have a better idea of what the potential savings are. But by having a smaller government employing fewer people, there have to be savings in this. And I hope at the same time that we will be delivering a more effective range of services to the public because of the streamlined government, and that this too ought to bring its own savings in due course.
You say that redundancies are the last option on your list, but surely there's going to be a lot of people worried today, and I know you're making a briefing to all the staff about this. There's going to be many people who will be having a very unhappy Christmas.
Well, we are notifying all the staff at the moment about what these proposals are. I think it's fair to say most members of staff have been aware that there have been changes proposed in the pipeline now for quite a few months. Many of the suggestions which are coming forward today have been born out of the series of meetings the Chief Secretary and I held during the summer, where we visited every department to speak to staff, to frontline staff, to senior management, to hear their frustrations, their ideas about improving things for the future. So this isn't simply a politically imposed solution. We have spoken to everyone at every level to get a feel for what their real concerns are. Undoubtedly, one of those concerns is the ongoing insecurity of the jobs. I hope we can make this as painless as possible and as quick as possible once the decision is made to go ahead with it. But we are in very, very challenging times, economic or financially at the moment. I think most members of staff realise that, and I think most people understand why we're having to make these decisions. The last thing I want to do is cause any unnecessary anguish for our staff. We have some excellent staff right across the whole of government, and I'm very impressed with the commitment and dedication they have. But these are changes which we have no choice but to implement if we are going to be able to maintain the core services which we all aspire to.
You talk of a silo mentality being a hindrance to modernisation reform. I take it that the fact that you're disbanding the DCCL is one of the departments where a silo mentality reigned and it was reluctant to reform.
I don't want to pick on any department, frankly. It's just the working practices which we have come across time and time again. And indeed, it was one of the most frequently commented on proposals from the staff when we met them, that they expressed their frustration at the lack of joined-up thinking across many departments. Every department in its own way had its problems. This new approach may not resolve all of them at a stroke, but it will be a step in the right direction, I think, to try and reinforce the culture change that we need to impose on government, to break down these silos, to get government thinking as a single unit for the greater good of the Isle of Man. And unless we can achieve that culture change, it's going to be very difficult to meet the challenging targets that we have on spending and budget rebalancing.
How does it go down with attending members?
We've had a good turnout of members. I think the majority of members were there. I think there has been a recognition as to why we're doing this. And at first reaction, I think, has been general support for the direction of travel. We'll know more, though, over the next few days and weeks as members fully absorb the implications of what's been suggested. And, of course, we will hear the outcome of that in January when there's a full debate on it.
One of the main... Oh, sorry, Adrian. I was going to say one of the main aims of the new Manx Utilities Authority is to basically save money, manage outstanding debt. Is it just the same as you're going to make from putting those two bodies together that will...
Well, there are a number of technical issues being worked up around that at the moment. There will be, in the short term, immediate financial savings, obviously by physically amalgamating the two departments in a single building and the various rationalising of services provided. But beyond that, we want to look at a broader strategy of dealing with all the debt. There is 400 million, as we know, with the MEA. There's 125 million with the sewerage development over the years, and 75 million with the Water Authority. All these debts have been well known for a long time, but it's an opportunity to bring them all together now under one roof and to identify an effective way of dealing with all this jointly rather than separately, as was the case in the past.
Just scanning through these notes, is there a hint here of privatisation of the bus service?
This really will be the opportunity, I think, for government to look at the future of all these services. The Department of Infrastructure will be taking on transport, but we will equally be looking at transport to review their own role, whether it's privatised or corporatised. It's too early to say yet, but we clearly cannot continue running an entity that's losing £6 million a year at a time when we desperately need money to keep frontline staff, frontline services operating. So although there is no specific recommendation in this report, the continuation of the work to identify a future for all these services will continue, albeit in a different department.
What do you mean when you're referring to these future phases about a review taking place to see if it would be more appropriate to establish government as a single entity?
Yes, well, government at the moment is 24, I think, separate legal entities. Every department has its own legal entity. We don't have a single government entity legally as a whole. I mean, one of the things, just as one example, if government had was a single legal entity as opposed to the 24 we've got, it is likely to be much easier to exchange information across departments. So data protection would be reviewed in that situation. So there are benefits to be gained from having a single entity as opposed to the current and long-term establishment of 24.
This Minister for Policy and Reform, just explain this. That sounds like a bit of a deputy chief minister.
No, I'm not appointing a deputy, but he will have a very pivotal role, or she will have a very pivotal role in the future progress of reform right across government. The difficulty is that at the moment we have, certainly the staffing issues are spread across several different entities. The Minister for Reform will have responsibility working through the Chief Secretary's office for the Office of Human Resources, for will take over as chairman of the Civil Service Commission or the Public Service Commission. They will represent well over 4,000 workers. That will be all brought into it. The ISD will be brought into the centre, as will the Economic Advisor, and his division will be brought into the Chief Sec's division with the aim of making economic planning more strategically central to what government has to do. At the moment, it's been very much on the margins of Treasury, I want that to come into the centre, be working with the new minister to help coordinate what's going on centrally. But that minister will be responsible for overseeing the changes which we need. He will follow and be able to track the policy initiatives which we launched to make sure that they are being implemented. At the moment, it's very difficult to try and keep track of all the different changes which are coming in. There's no centrally coordinated point where all that information passes through, but this new minister will be responsible for that and coordinating policy across departments. Because the problem we've had with other ministerial appointments, those appointments are just specifically for that department. They don't have the ability to step outside their department to follow or track initiatives which might be linked to that. And you might look at things like children's services, for example, which spread across, I think, 3 or 4 different departments. We will have the ability now to track progress on a number of these initiatives as they come through. So it'll be a very strong central post which is designed to really step up the pace of change and reform that we need across government, and to oversee and make sure that initiatives which have been started are completed and properly introduced.
You're going to go down to 8 ministers from 9?
Yes.
Do you have the ultimate power to carry something, or does it go to deadlock?
No, the minister, the department structure that we're looking at will drop 1 minister down to 8. That will be 9 of us in the Council of Ministers. That redundant minister, if you want to call them that at the moment, will be held in reserve. If there is a need for a minister to be appointed at some point in the future, then that post is available for use. And that might be a minister for another department, perhaps, but it could be a minister for a specific issue, a cross-departmental issue. I mean, I don't want to keep using children, but if we use the children's issues, it might be we will have a minister for children's issues. I mean, if you look at the UK, for example, they have a minister for women. It doesn't have a department, but there is a responsibility across the whole of government. It's that sort of thing. So that one redundant ministerial post at the moment will be held in reserve, possibly for use in the future. But in the short term, we will be continuing with 8 ministers and the Chief Minister.
So you got someone in mind for the new post of Minister of Policy and Reform?
I haven't made any ministerial changes or appointment changes anywhere in government as part of this. I want to see how things develop over the next few weeks, and obviously we'll wait to see what the outcome of the vote in Tynwald is, to know finally what the structure of government will look like, and then there will be some appropriate changes at that time.
Have you got to hit April? Because I mean, if it gets delayed in Tynwald with, people asking to ratify things, change things, will that really affect how you go about this? Because obviously that's budget day, isn't it? And budget.
Well, budget is in February. What I hope to do is get the reforms out of the way in January, so we've got a clear idea where government is going. That will be followed by the budget in April. In February, and then the introduction of the start date of these changes will come in on the 1st of April. So there's a tight timetable there together, but it's dovetailed together. If Tynwald were to reject the changes, then clearly we would go back to the drawing board and look at it again. If it's delayed, it would be inconvenient, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. We would listen to what Tynwald has to say. What I don't want to do with this is make members feel they're being bounced into a new structure. I really want to give them time to assimilate what we're talking about. I want a measured approach to the introduction of this. I want to be sure that members are comfortable with the direction of travel. We have a very, very difficult run-in now to the next election, and it's important that the structure we have serves its purpose as effectively as it possibly can. And that will only work if we've got the buy-in from most members of Tynwald to achieve it.
And you mentioned you've done the chat with them today. What was the mood music like? I mean, you think you got it there? I mean,
I think the mood music, it's fair to say, was fairly supportive. There wasn't too many negative comments. It is very much in line with the debate which has been going on now for quite some time about the need to reform government. I think most members are signed up to it. They will quite naturally need a little bit of time to completely take in the implications of some of the changes which are being proposed. But I have given members plenty of time between now and the January debate to come back to us if they have any concerns. If there's any tweaking they want done, we will be more than happy to look at it. So I'm hoping by adopting a more collegiate approach to developing these changes, we have a better chance of getting them accepted and, more to the point, properly implemented in time next year.
You want to banish silo mentalities. You've got fewer silos,
Yes.
but they're still potentially silos, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, I've said right at the outset of my term as Chief Minister that you can have any structure of government that you want, you can have any scope of government you want, but until you change the culture of government, you're not going to drill down to the ability to really change things radically across the island. The silo mentality is a strong example of the old culture of government, the old way of doing things, just thinking in narrow terms in response to their own responsibility. I hope this new proposal, whilst not finally, I guess, ending the silo approach, will be at least a major first step towards overturning that culture and finally getting people to recognise we have to think outside the box, we have to think outside the traditional way that we've done business and recognise the challenges ahead of us and start thinking in a more original, constructive way, but also a broad approach across the whole of government, not just in the narrow departmental responsibility they might have. We are the Isle of Man government. We are not the department of such and such. And members, both politicians and staff, have got to recognise that. We have got to work in a holistic way if we're going to be able to provide the services to the Isle of Man over the next few years at a level that everyone expects from us.
One of the biggest changes, one of the biggest reforms being looked at currently are welfare reforms.
Mm-hmm.
And moving social security to treasury. How does that play out with the reforms that are currently overseen?
That won't change. The reforms will continue.
Under social care or under
It will continue under Treasury from 1st of April, but those reforms will continue. There will be a seamless transition. There will be no changes there. And there's certainly no backing off of the need for reform. There's a universal recognition, I think, across government that we can't go on, we can't afford to go on with the system we've had in the past. It's got to be more relevant to what we need today. And so I think this change will work. There will be undoubtedly some teething problems in the early few weeks and possibly even few months. We have to allow for that. But I'm still convinced this is the right way forward if we're going to bring about the changes that we need. The one thing I would emphasise, though, is that if, in the light of the experience of the new structure, we still find areas that we need to tweak or we need to refine in some ways, that won't hold us back. We will bring in ongoing changes to ensure that the system delivers exactly what we want it to. So I'm not being hung up that this is the ultimate perfect solution. There may be needs to tweak it and amend it, but the important thing is that from today, this is the direction of travel that government is going to go in. We are fully committed to reform and streamlining government. We are fully committed to continuing to deliver the best possible public services that we can afford. And I believe this is a strong statement of intent that government itself is prepared to downsize by dropping a minister, by dropping senior officers, and indeed dropping other employee numbers in the process. This is as strong a message as I think we can give at this time of absolute commitment to those original principles.